Welcome back to Survival Dispatch News. We are John and Dave of the Righteous Savages.
What's happening?
We are going to talk about a very, very important subject, and a subject that you really probably can't talk enough about, and it seems to be getting even crazier and crazier, and that is situational awareness. If I can get my tongue untied tonight. And that's a big deal, and as a 29-year police veteran, Dave has a ton to talk about on this subject. So I'm going to give him the majority of the floor tonight, and we're just going to I'll add in the things that need to be added in, but I know he has a lot of things to say about this. So, Dave, I'm going to give the floor to you.
Appreciate it, brother. So I hear a lot of guys talking about situational awareness on the old YouTubes and a lot of videos, and it's obviously important. It gets a little boring talking about some things sometimes, the same old information that gets regurgitated all the time, but we want to give you some real first-hand knowledge of kind of what's going on, what I've seen in my career in law enforcement, what we've seen from victims of crime, what they've came and told us, and kind of what we learned along the way of reality out there in the streets. Did you see the video of Kamala Harris talking about the people she's been talking to in the streets lately?
No, but I'm sure it was a riveting conversation.
I think it was Taraji, what's her name, from had a show
on
Fox.
Yeah. I did see this.
She was getting interviewed. It was at the White House or something, and old Kamala was talking to her people in the streets. But anyway, what we've learned from people who are really honest to goodness in the streets is kind of shocking. And so here's the first thing we want everybody to be very clear about. There is so much crime going on out there in your neighborhood, it would blow your mind completely into a million pieces. It would be nuclear meltdown if you, honest to God, really knew what was going on. And you just don't want to know. And as citizens living in America, law enforcement's job is to suppress crime enough that you don't see or really know what's going on. If you did see it all the time, your life would be depressing, horrible. You'd have a nervous breakdown every 5 minutes, because you would actually see the truth of what's going on out there. So we don't want to really pull the curtain back all the way into the evil of the world. It's like looking straight down into hell, but we do want to give people a little insight here into what's going on.
But I've been reliably informed that we don't have to worry about that in the small town USA or any of that kind of stuff. This all happens in big cities, right?
I forgot that crime is on the way down.
I've been reliably informed. In fact, we posted a video. Little side note: we posted a short about why businesses are closing down and how crime is actually causing these pharmacies and all this stuff to close because of the level of crime, and just all these cities that have anything under $1,000 is not considered a felony anymore. So these businesses are closing down. And I was reliably informed in the comments by all of the keyboard warriors that I am sadly mistaken and crime is not down. And these cities are actually doing this so that small businesses will return. I think that was a couple of the comments, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Everything is backwards.
Yeah, but anyways, I digress.
I retired last year after 29 years in law enforcement, and I'm still working in the law enforcement field. And I was talking to one of my current cop buddies today, who's an investigator in we'll just call it Southern Illinois. And while we had some time, we were talking about a case he's working on. And this case he's working on involves illegal aliens, which is what they are. They're not, I think the White House calls them newcomers to America, but they are illegal aliens. And here's what's going on. They're not coming to America to pick apples anymore, because that pays maybe minimum wage, and what pays a lot more than that is crime. Crime pays a lot more than that, and there's motivations for them to do this, and we'll get into that in a second. But here's what we got going on right now. So this investigator is working on a case where a crew of dozens of illegals, and we're talking like Haiti, Venezuela, not Mexico. This is not mom and dad with 3 kids that are just, working in a restaurant looking for a better life and coming to America. But we're seeing on the criminal side, we're not seeing those folks. We're seeing all of the tens and hundreds of thousands and millions of people coming here with criminal intent. So here's the little thing. We've got people from Chicago, a bunch of illegals. This is really a criminal conspiracy going on, and it's not really anything to do with drugs, but it's crime nonetheless. So here's how it works. You get some illegals, you get a dozen or so, and they all go on rental cars, so it's a little bit harder to track. And they get in these rental cars, and they decide to go on an auto burglary spree. And so what they do is they'll pull up to a park, like a park where there's baseball games going on with kids, and they'll watch a mom pull up, or mom and dad with their 8-year-old son. They get out with the baseball gear, go walk to the field, and then the illegals will pull their car up next to them, smash the window out, grab the purse that you know is in the car, and then they'll go pull off down the parking lot a little ways and wait. And they'll target 5 or 6 people. This takes about 30 minutes. They've done smash and grabs on cars, and now they have 5 or 6 purses filled with credit cards, debit cards. Now what they do with that is they go to the bank. They've got the ID of the owner of the purse, and they will find somebody in their crew that looks like this person. And if they don't look like them enough, they'll go buy wigs, they'll buy all kinds of makeup, whatever, and they will make themselves look as close to the person on the ID as possible. Also in the purse is probably their bank information. So then with the fake or with a real ID, fake clothes and a wig, they will go into the bank and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Teller, I've got my ID here, my license. I forgot my account number. I need to take out, I don't know, $5,000 from my bank. Could you look up my account number? And here's me. And of course, the bank's like, okay, I've got the driver's license. They look up the account number for the person and hand over $5,000. And then they go on to the next town. Imagine that's not just one person. That's, dozens of people. And it's crazy. And here's what's even worse than that. These officers and detectives are spending countless hours upon hours investigating these crimes. We've got these license plate reader networks all across America, and we can do a pretty good job of tracking these people and where they've gone and what towns, and get all the video and put all this stuff together and get search warrants and arrest warrants and go arrest these people. And this investigator went and did probably, 100 hours worth of work, located these people in another part of America, went there, got these people arrested. At 4 a.m, he's writing probable cause statements out for the state's attorney's office, drives home 5 hours. And when he gets up the next morning, these people have been let out of jail already with a notice to appear because, well, it's just auto burglaries. It's not just, like what is, so that's going on. Some of these people have criminal histories that are 30, 40 pages long. Yeah, they broke into a car, but these are career criminals. And remember, it's the 4 or 5% of criminals that are committing 90% of the crimes in your town. So this has a huge, huge effect, and it's so discouraging when finally you realize, state's attorney's not going to do anything. And then you go to the bank and say, hey, we had people come in here and we have them identified, and they stole $5,000 from your bank. We need you to write us a letter, or we need somebody to be a victim. And the bank is like, we just write it off, whatever. They don't want to get involved. So the bank doesn't want to get involved. Stores, when it comes to retail theft, like we were talking earlier, CVS and Walgreens. And it's not just those huge stores. It's Casey's General Store, and it's Dollar General. And you name the store, any cop in America will tell you half the stores they go to on retail theft calls, or they catch somebody with a bunch of stolen merchandise, the stores don't want to prosecute. It's just like, maybe they don't even want their stuff back. We had one officer tell me that a Home Depot was hit by a crew with a U-Haul truck that would come in and they would just daily steal stuff. They had a truck full of $100,000 of DeWalt tools. And Home Depot wouldn't even come and get the tools back. They had to get the insurance company or somebody to get back. So this crime is all over the place. You have no idea. These people that I'm talking about, the illegals and the Autoberg schemes, are also high tech. They're not just smashing windows. They also have credit card skimmers. And they're not just putting them on gas stations or weird places. They're taking these credit card skimmers and putting them on the ATM machine at the bank. Name the bank, and they're just showing up at 3 a.m, putting a skimmer on there. You go to get your $20 fast cash out, and it reads your card, it reads your PIN, and they've got your number. And now they're on Amazon buying, $5,000 worth of Amazon gift cards. They get sent back to Russia or some other country, and it's just on and on and on.
And I think that the interesting thing that I thought of when you were talking about that was the repercussion that nobody really talks about here, and that's insurance. Because you just said they don't want to take their merchandise back. They just rather claim it on insurance. Do you know what that does in the long run?
Yeah.
That destroys
Exactly.
the insurance industry.
And on top of that, you know what else that does? When you go to Home Depot and they've had to take a hit for $100,000, guess what you're paying more for the next time you go to Home Depot?
Yep.
The stuff you need.
Yep.
So when, Biden talks about, all these stores and businesses that are just, raping people on purpose just to make a profit, well, it's not just that. It's just the cost of doing business is so much because of their decision not to prosecute that things are expensive, and it gets passed down to all of us. So there's a reason related to all this why your stuff is more.
Yep.
There's no way a big business like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever is going to just eat and take a hit on this. It's going to get passed on. Otherwise, people get fired. They lose their jobs. Everybody has a bottom line. Everybody's got to get better every year. And if somebody doesn't take the hit, then people are losing their jobs, whatever.
Or they're closing stores.
Yeah.
That's the reality. It's like Target in Minneapolis. I think they've closed so many stores because of the crime level, and they're headquartered in Minneapolis, and Target is like moving out of that area because of the crime.
Yeah.
And ironically, that's where the whole BLM movement started in 2020. So
Right.
This stuff long term, we haven't actually even seen the long-term repercussions of all of this yet, because this has only been going on for a couple of years, and it takes that stuff. I mean, I know we're all seeing higher rates on our insurance, higher rates in homes, all of this stuff. That's not going to slow down as long as we got this crap going on.
Yep.
And that's the repercussions that hits everybody.
Yeah, and so a lot of the criminals involved in this stuff, they are dangerous people. They are murderers and rapists. So you could interrupt the poor auto burglar that's stealing your purse out of your car, and turns out he's a 5-time murderer from some other country, and you've just seen his face. And so now he can't afford to somebody be a witness, and it's not going to work out so good for you. So speaking of all the crime and all this stuff that's happening everywhere, the whole point of all of this is that you need to know and should understand that you can and could be a victim at any moment. And it doesn't mean you run around paranoid and paralyzed by fear, but you have to know you got to come from a starting place of, yep, this is something that could absolutely happen to me. Just turn on the news, for crying out loud, and see it for yourself. So with that being said, knowing that you can be a victim, probably the top 3 pieces of advice, and we'll get to situational here, awareness in a second, but the top 3 things that you've got to incorporate into your daily life is have a gun and know how to use it. That's just number 1. And if you think, well, I don't have a lot of experience or I'm new to guns, you got to start somewhere. You just have to say, I am going to do this. Of all the calls I went to as a cop, the armed robberies at gas stations, the home invasions, the sexual assaults, in the back of my mind as a firearms trainer, I'm thinking, man, would this person have been safer or less injured or had a chance to survive if they would have had a gun? And it's always yes. Having a gun almost never puts you in more danger. It's always an equalizing tool. Now, it is a tool. It's not a solve all your problems solution. But, man, it's really good, and it does solve a lot of problems. So have a gun, know how to use it. We could talk about that for 10 hours just by itself.
And I think that this is actually even a bigger tip for females, because physical strength is the reality is men are stronger than women biologically. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, but by and large, the average suburban soccer mom is not as strong as a criminal who's had a life of crime. Mm-hmm. And so having that gun, we call it the great equalizer. It is absolutely that. But you need to know how to use it. And for every female, I would say this is probably one of the biggest things that we could impress upon you is get trained so you can protect your kids, because there's going to be situations where you're going to have your kids alone, and it's important that you know how to use those things.
Yeah, so we don't want it to be a false sense of security. A lot of people we see in our training, it's just, I've got a gun, I throw it in my pocket, everything's going to be fine. That's almost worse. You have to have a good understanding. If you decided you just want to be a semi-truck driver one day and thought, I'm going to get in this semi for the first time ever and just drive it just because I can, that's not going to work out. You need training. Somebody needs to teach you how all this stuff works. And just because a 2-year-old can pick up a gun and pull the trigger does not mean it's just that. simple. So you've got to get trained on it. It's a journey. You got to start somewhere. So get a gun, know how to use it. Number two, I'd say get a knife, get a pocket knife too. I mean, that's a great plan B. If you don't have a gun, have a knife. You think about all these college student joggers and these women who are getting, raped and murdered by illegals. Having something somewhere, some way to defend yourself other than just your bare hands is big time, and it's not very intrusive. It's not very uncomfortable. And a lot of women might think, well, I don't want to carry a knife. Like that's a dude thing, or just, I don't know. Once again, get some training, get on. It might just start with watching YouTube. It might be watching people that are knife experts, whatever. Those two things, have a knife, have a gun. I would make that part of your everyday carry, your everyday, you don't leave the house with at least one of those.
Yep.
Hopefully multiples of both, if possible. And the last of my top 3 tips is have some self-defense skills. We see that, and it doesn't mean you have to be a MMA, jiu-jitsu expert, a world champion. Our goal in self-defense is not to knock out our opponent in real life. The goal is to be able to escape, survive, prevail. That's it. If you can get away from somebody and run off to get help, that's a win. That's exactly, then you've survived the thing. And this is exactly what you want to do. So you don't have to have the mindset of, I need physical skills to knock somebody out cold. It's bigger than me. That's not really what it's about. So you get into the jiu-jitsu world and some other self-defense and have some physical control skills. Once again, that builds your level of confidence, your capabilities. Some of that stuff is like magic, man. It really can be another equalizer, especially for females. So think about self-defense training, not, going to a class where you learn how to poke somebody's eyes, like the Three Stooges. I'm talking like real self-defense and self-protection. So look around, ask some cop buddies of yours, ask some people that are, go to a gym or whatever, have been, anybody that's in jiu-jitsu classes will tell you it doesn't, there's a lot of good guys out there. So find somebody you can get into a gym like that. For
Yep.
sure.
Yep. Physical fitness would be a kind of a tag on to that too.
3A.
I think that, yeah. Because physical fitness, the reality is if you get into a physical altercation, you're going to get gassed really quick.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it.
So I'm 52 years old now. Been involved in law enforcement, been involved in the SWAT world for multiple decades, and that was always, physical fitness was always part of some extent of my job and my career. I was never in triathlons or never did anything super crazy. But now, after I'm retired, still physical fitness is important. If you talk to a lot of people, one of the biggest indicators of longevity for your life is your VO2 max. How much oxygen can you move through your lungs? And whether you're just, sitting in a hospital bed, trying to recover from a surgery or some bad deal, or you're on the street rolling around with somebody, your aerobic capacity is pretty important. So for me, I run once a week. That's it. I hate running. A lot of people hate it. But my 1 day a week aerobics is run 2 miles on a treadmill, and I run 2 miles as fast as I can possibly run it. It's 1 lap, a warm up, and after that, it's sprint time. And I know treadmill is not the same as real life, but top speed on the treadmill I'm running out right now is like 12 miles an hour, and do 2 miles in like 11 and a half minutes. That's pretty gassed. And then 5-minute break, and then it's burpees for 3 minutes. 2-minute break. Then it's air squats for 2 minutes. Then another couple-minute break. Then it's pull-ups for 1 minute. And it's about a 35-minute workout. That's all the aerobic things I do all week other than resistance training. But my whole point of that is I want to have a good I can VO2 max. I can move oxygen through my lungs in case I'm rolling around, because 30 seconds of fighting for your life is like running for 5 miles. And if something weird happens, when the stress happens, in my law enforcement career, you could get out of a car and go sprint after somebody, and within 3 steps, it feels like concrete blocks are on your feet. because of whatever, the stress, the chaos. Sometimes adrenaline doesn't do magic things and make you Superman. The stress of the moment can take everything out of you in a hurry. So I would highly recommend that as well, physical fitness. So now that we've kind of got those three things out of the way, let's talk about some actual situational awareness type stuff that's beyond just equipment or gear or training you might be doing. So number one is assume you're going to be a victim. Assume that people are going to be trying to take advantage of you. That means when you go to the store and somebody's counting your change back, you should assume somebody's going to keep your $5 that you were supposed to get. You're paying attention to those things. You're paying attention to your people you're having interactions with, at a bank, a store, out on the street, whatever. The saying we had in law enforcement was this: be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet. So it doesn't mean you're thinking about how to kill the clerk at the gas station who's counting your money back, but you are skeptical of just people in general. And you're paying attention and not just assuming they're going to give you all the change back. And you're not going to be just assuming that everybody is out there to help you. A lot of people are there to take advantage of you.
Yep, absolutely. It's kind of crazy. We actually, and this is a shout out to last night, we did a conflicted question on our look ahead at the week, me and Chris Heaven, and the whole scenario. And I want to get your take on this because this is kind of in this realm. Is you're traveling alone and all of a sudden your car dies, and you've noticed that every car around you has died, so you assume there's possibility of an EMP going off. What do? Do you try and form a group with the crowd, or do you stay on the outside and kind of disappear into the wilderness? I had my own take, but I kind of wanted to see what you thought, because my thing was like, I'm going to be really judgy of everybody. I'm not really going to think, oh, let's form a band and get home together, because nobody else is really going to have the same goal as you.
Yeah, I'm a loner by DNA, I guess, and I would feel just personally much more comfortable sneaking off into the outskirts and just kind of sitting back and watching to see what's going on, from a distance, and formulate a plan maybe after that. I would not want to, trust my safety to a bunch of brand new people I don't even know.
Right.
That might be, and you can tell it's like just an episode of Survivor or something. It'd be cutthroat within 2 seconds.
Well, you go like, because the reality is I'm going to have more stuff in my vehicle ready to meet those situations than other people are, and those people are just going to be looking to take that stuff from me. So I'm out of there.
I'm comfortable walking. If I got to walk 20 miles home, along a riverbed somewhere.
I'm good with that.
Might need to do that.
So what's the next one, Dave?
Next one is look people in the eyes. This is kind of a specific tip. So anywhere, if you're walking through a parking lot or through Walmart or some store or some gas station on the bad side of town, don't be afraid to actually look at people. What you're telling them is that you are aware of what's going on, you're aware of your surroundings, and you're not setting yourself up as much for a surprise attack. And not, of course, the obvious of don't want your face down in your phone as you're walking through a parking lot at night. But sometimes people get nervous to make eye contact with somebody. You see somebody sketchy walking towards you, and it's like, oh, this guy's weird. I know I've heard a lot of women say they don't want to make eye contact because they're afraid the suspect is going to think that they're attracted to them, or they like them, or they're giving them attention. And so we're not wanting you to just have a stare down with somebody, but you do need to just let everybody know you see what's going on, you see where they're at. That you're not going to be taken by surprise, that nobody can come up, especially from in front of you out of nowhere. And that just sets people off a little bit when you do make eye contact. If they were thinking about trying to come up and snatch your purse or snatch something out of your hands, and you look at them from 20 feet away, it's going to feel more difficult for them to do that attack. So get in the habit of looking at people in the eyes. And plus, you can gauge somebody's demeanor so much just by the look in their eye. We hear this all the time where victims of crime tell cops or whoever, like, I was dealing with this guy and I could just tell by the look in his eyes something was wrong with this guy. Man, when your eyes really are a window to your soul. And that's we'll talk later about intangibles and some things you really can't put a word on or a thing. look in the eyes is one of those intangibles. Like you can just tell
Yep.
somebody's demeanor. In my law enforcement career, it's kind of like that with DUIs. You can tell when somebody is drunk. When you go to court, however, you can't just tell the judge or a jury, look, I've been a cop for 30 years. I could tell he was drunk. They're going to want to know, well, how? How did you know? Well, you could say all the specific things. You could say we had red eyes and his speech was slurred and, he was confused. And they might say, well, that sounds like Joe Biden. Like, no, no. And so you could say all those things, but normal people could have those things too.
Yeah.
Just because you have red eyes doesn't mean you're drunk. Just because you couldn't think of an answer doesn't mean you're drunk. But you can just your brain can put all those things together and tell this is a drunk person I'm looking at. It also is the same way with crime and criminals and people that are out to get you and hurt you. Gut feeling, trust that stuff. You can tell, and looking at people in the eyes is one of those things that can really give you a good feeling for what's going on.
Especially, I think, anybody that you've not seen before that you don't know, make it a point to do that. It's like me. I go to two different gas stations. I always visit two different gas stations close to my home. One north and one south, depending on which way I'm going. I know most of the clerks that work there. I've had conversations with them. A couple of them actually used to work for me. But so I kind of know those people. But anytime I'm looking at somebody new, I'm always going to try and make a conscious effort to make that eye contact with them. It's a stranger. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if I could trust them. And to a certain extent, people that I know I can trust a little bit more than just a stranger. So also that tier of, always having the ability to look and say, okay, I don't really know this person. I need to make a conscious effort to look this person in the eye and do that. So.
Yep. Absolutely. So next on the list, have what I call, and I've coined, an attack response plan, AARP. So for old people like me, this AARP is very important. So what is an attack response plan? Well, it's something you have set in your mind ahead of time that you are going to do on cue without hesitation if something were to happen. So for example, you're a female and you're walking to your car in the mall parking lot at nighttime, and a guy pops up from behind your car with a knife and says, listen, lady, get in the car. Don't scream. Don't yell. I won't hurt you as long as you don't scream. Get in the car. Now, if you don't have a pre-planned response, an attack response plan, what you might do is just get in the car because you don't know what any other options are. You don't know how you're going to fight off a grown man with a knife and you have nothing. But if you have a pre-planned response of, I'm not getting in the car under any circumstances because I know if I leave this person, he probably really is going to kill me. So your plan is I'm going to resist, run, fight, do whatever humanly possible to get away, to escape this person. Even if it means I get stabbed or shot, my chances are still better of survival if I do those things. So you have that pre-planned. So when the stimulus of the guy popping up with a knife happens, you automatically focus on that attack response plan. If you don't have that, we see people get paralyzed by fear. They just don't know what to do. You've got the fight response, flight. The third one is the freeze response. And we see that a lot with people who don't know what they're supposed to do. So you got to have a plan in place for what you're going to do. We call it sometimes rules of engagement. In law enforcement, in the SWAT world, our response, we practice a lot of hostage rescue stuff. And if we were set up on a perimeter for a hostage rescue barricade type of deal, there were rules for us to respond. So, for example, if your gunman that's holding somebody hostage starts giving a countdown, like, I'm going to kill this hostage in 20 seconds, and you can hear them on the phone in the background going 19, 18, that's pre-planned. We are not going to wait to see if the countdown is real and hope there's not a gunshot. It's so risky at this point that we've decided ahead of time if there's ever a countdown going on, we're going in. We're going to go in and start shooting bad guys. It's the riskiest thing you could possibly do, but you have to have that done ahead of time. And knowing that ahead of time gives us the confidence to just trust the process, trust the plan that we have in place. So we talk about response plan, rules of engagement, those type of things. That's what we're talking about. kind of, some of those things that kind of go along with that are, OODA loop, throwing some distractions into your plan of how you might force an escape, messing with the thought process of the bad guy. So if you've never heard of, we've been using this phrase OODA loop for 25 years now or more. But essentially it's a way to disrupt the bad guy's thought process to give you an advantage to either escape, get to your gun, your deadly force weapon, or take some other type of action and catch up in the thought process. But definitely take a look into that type of stuff.
There's a great video that we show in our concealed carry class of, I think it's in Chicago. There's a off-duty cop that's at a gas station. He gets approached by, I think it's 3 or 4 guys while he's pumping gas at night. And he handles it, and it's almost a textbook way to handle this kind of a thing if you're trying to get to your gun, because what he does is he starts handing single items out of his pockets, and his gun's back on his hip, and he's deliberately moving his hand and handing these things to one by one, and he's making them look at these items that he's giving them, and then finally he just pulls out his gun and shoots the first guy, and the other 2 just scatter. But it's a perfect example of how to use just the smallest things to distract what the criminal's looking at.
Yep. And whenever you get to that plan, whatever you've decided to do, whether it's get your gun or run or bite the guy, whatever, at that point, when that physical plan goes into action, it has to involve a high level of savagery. Hence the term righteous savage.
Yes.
So we want to be good guys and girls. We want to do the right thing. We're out there trying to protect our families, our neighbors, our community. But when it comes time to get the knife out to protect yourself or get the gun, it's all that nice stuff is over. It is completely over. And what you do to this person, as long as it falls within being legal, moral, ethical, if it falls into that, it needs to be as savage as possible. If you are justified in using deadly force because somebody's trying to kill you, then we are going to unleash an enormous amount of deadly force on this person until the threat is over. And so there needs to be you might not even have a gun or a knife, and that might have to be bare hands with your teeth, your feet, your fists, whatever. And there needs to be a place inside of your soul that is able to do that and have the attitude of, I'm not going to let this guy take advantage of me any longer. So
Mel Gibson in The Patriot, when he's just hacking guys down with his tomahawk and his knife like a savage.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. All right, moving on. Next tip. Get in the habit of knowing where you are at. So when we talk about situational awareness, you might roll up on a car crash somewhere. You might get in a car wreck and you roll over in your own vehicle. Or you might be rolling around a town somewhere at night and you see a robbery or a shooting going on. We get so many 911 calls where people call in and the dispatcher says, what's the address of your emergency? And they're like, some dude got shot. Okay, where you at? I'm over here by, my Fred's house. Where's Fred's house? He lives on that one street down by Dude next to that, that one place.
Floyd Leon's right down the street.
So far, not really quite sure where that's at. Where are you? I'm up. We need something. We need something. And even if you don't know the address, we need landmarks. I'm right next to Jimmy John's. Okay, cool. Now we're probably getting to the area. Or maybe you're traveling down the interstate and you pull over because you got a flat tire and some, dirt bags pull up behind you and you get in a fight and there's a shooting and they take off and you're shot and you got to get on the phone. Where are you going to say you're at? I don't know. I'm on the interstate. Where, have you seen a mile marker sign lately? Have you seen an exit sign lately? Have you been paying attention to that? Or you just zoomed into Pandora and the music on your phone and I just never thought anything bad, whatever. You've got to pay attention. So situational awareness is knowing where you are and being able to describe where you are. Now for me, for example, me and my wife would describe things completely different. Men usually describe things like, I'm on the north side of Lowe's by the southeast corner, of the transformer. Like we give north, south, east, west directions. Now my wife, if you ask my wife, how do you get to the hospital? She would say, turn right by the flower shop and then go down a little ways and turn left by that pretty store that's got the dresses. Like she would say those things. There's not a lot of east, west, north, south. But I would try to make it a habit of just practicing to know where you are. We do this in law enforcement. When I first started as a cop in 1994, I moved to a town of 100,000 people, lots of streets. I'd never been there a day in my life, and I've got to practice knowing where I'm at. And so on my days off, I drive around town and take notes of 100 blocks and street names and start to memorize the streets of the town. You just had to do that. Nowadays, cops get hired, and what do you think they do if they get called to an address somewhere? Google.
Yep.
Google Maps. Where's what such and such? And they never learn. It takes them forever, if ever, before they learn how to get around. So you got to pay attention to where you're at and be able to describe where you are. And so all you got to do is practice it. You can be driving to work somewhere and practice. If I saw X, Y, or Z crime happen in front of me right now, how would it sound if I called 911? How would I describe it? Do I even know the street I'm on? Or if I don't, can I give a landmark close to where I'm at? Those type of things. Suspect descriptions.
Yep.
People. What does this person look like? Clothing. All those types of things. So whenever you're getting ready to call the police, just be aware they're looking for where you're at. What's the guy look like? What direction did they go? All that good stuff. And we get so many calls on 911. Like, yeah, well, this is the bank. We just got robbed of $1 million. All right, cool. Where'd the guy go? We don't know. He ran out the door, and you don't know if he went right or left. No, we don't know. We need to know. We need to know some basic information like that. So get in the habit. Just practice. Practice paying attention to where you are, and practice giving that information out on your practice 911 calls, whatever the case is.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I've done for years, really, since I used to work driving over the road, I'd drive 3,000 miles a week, over the road in a regional area. I'd practice reading road signs. I still do it when I'm on the road now. Okay, here's the Benton exit. Here's the Mount Vernon exit. Here's the, and so I always kind of have an idea. I may not be able to exactly pinpoint the mile marker, but I have an idea. Hey, I'm between Ina and Mount Vernon. So if I did need to call the police, they'd be able to narrow the search.
Or in your mind, you could be like, I'm southbound on 57. I just passed the Marion exit about 1 minute ago.
Yep.
I don't know exactly where I'm at, but I'm driving 70, and I passed this place about a minute ago, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep.
Being able to describe things like that is very important. Another thing you can do out there to practice these skills is find the concealed carry permit holder. So in your goings about town out there at Walmart or the store, look around. There's a lot of people that are carrying guns legally these days, and illegally, I might say. And so look, just eyeball people. You're not staring at them and telling them to turn around and lift their shirt up, but you're wanting to see, can you see the grip of a handgun protruding through their shirt? You're wanting to see if they're giving away a tell, like they're constantly, holding on to their basketball shorts with one. Like, why would you have to hold up your basketball shorts? Because there's a gun, in your shorts, type of thing. So look for people that might have weapons. It could be a gun for concealed carry. It could just be a pocket knife. See if people are wearing a pocket knife or some other type of knife. Kind of look for weapons and the tells that people give away that show they might be carrying some concealed weapon. You'd be surprised what you find out, and plus it just gives you some practice on analyzing people. In the SWAT world that we lived in, when we would practice doing search warrants and entries, we went through a process that Paul Howe came up with of scanning people. It's called whole body hands. So you're kind of getting a flash sight picture of the whole person, their demeanor, their look in their eyes, that type of thing. And then you go down to their hands, their waist, places where people conceal things. Maybe the person that you see in Walmart with a gun is a cop off duty. Maybe you should be looking for a badge or looking for the buzz haircut, and, the name your Righteous Savages t-shirt or whatever thing gives away them as a cop. Look for that stuff and see if you can find those things out. It's a good way to practice your people watching skills, your situational awareness skills. Analyze people you run into out in public and see if you can find these people carrying any weapons or not.
That's a good tip, and you'd be blown away if you've been a concealed carry license holder for a while. Probably probably the first like 6 months of that, you're paranoid as all get out to walk around. Oh crap, I'm carrying a gun with me. What if somebody calls me out? And then you find out that about 99.9% of the population is not paying any attention to that.
You could carry an AR-15 slung over your shoulder.
And half people wouldn't even see it.
Most people would not even know it. It is crazy how much people are not.
So, after about 6 months, you're like, okay, nobody's paying attention to this. But if you are paying attention, you can actually see it.
Yeah.
You know,
and it doesn't take a lot. It just takes you just actually doing that thing, actually paying attention on purpose. So get some practice on that. Next tip is... This is kind of a big one. We need you to assume that anybody that approaches you in public, where it's somebody, a homeless guy on a corner asking for money, or somebody approaches you in a parking lot asking for directions, you need to assume that possibly this is not legit. Like maybe there's a chance that this person that's asking me for directions is part of a crew. They're distracting me so they can break into my car, or they're distracting me so they can get ready to attack or rob me. I would make it a habit of anybody I talk to on the street. So we had people come up and ask us as cops for directions a lot. Like, hey, officer, how do I get to so-and-so? I'm trying to find my buddy's house. After being a cop for about 10 years, I finally got to the point of, as soon as somebody asked me a question like, hey, officer, can you tell me where to get to so-and-so? I would not answer the question, and I would look around just real quick and just kind of make sure nobody was around. And I'd say, hey, where are you trying to get to? And I would ask them to tell me the question again, even though I knew what it was. But, I could blow it off like I heard something or I'm paying attention, so it doesn't look like I think, they're trying to get me. But you just assume that people are trying to get you. Don't assume that the question about how do I get to so-and-so's house is legit. And if you are that aware, all of a sudden you're more prepared to be a little step closer to preventing attack in the first place, but closer to be able to respond, to run away, get to your gun, whatever. So don't assume that the easy, simple questions are that. I always just... live by the motto of I'm just going to assume that everybody's out to get me. I can still be polite and professional with these people. I can still have a conversation. I can still make them think that, hey, I'm going to help you out, and maybe I am going to help them out. But just don't get sucked into, as soon as somebody asks you a question, that's exactly what their intent is. And I'm telling you, I talked about it at the beginning. All these cartels and criminal networks run around. They make a living out of doing this simple stuff, coming up and distracting you, asking you for directions, asking you for change, asking you for $1. And they don't give a rip about you giving them $1. They just want your attention for 30 seconds while their buddy is breaking into your car or breaking into your house, or they're skimming your credit card info as they stand next to you, or whatever. There's a million different illegal things that could be going on just with simple contact from somebody. So just have in the back of your mind that there might be something else going on here.
Yep. Well, and I have a personal story that I'll share about this. This happened, this has been 11 years ago, I want to say, at an ATM at Regions Bank in Marion, Illinois. And I pulled up to the ATM in my little Toyota 4Runner, and I put my card in. And about the time I put my card in, I start putting my PIN in, which is when I can't get my card back. I catch something out of the corner of my eye. And I look back to the back of my vehicle, and there's a woman standing there. And she's asked me where the dollar store is. Starts talking to me, and I'm like, well, the dollar store is right over here. And she starts asking me more questions. And while I'm looking at her, I catch something else out of the corner of my eye. And on the other side of my vehicle, there's a guy. And he's walking down the side of my vehicle. Well, this was before I had a concealed carry permit. But the law in Illinois back then said that you could actually have a gun and ammunition in a compartment in your vehicle. So I had a gun in my vehicle. And I open up the center console while I'm talking because I see this guy walking down the passenger side of my car. I reach in and I find the magazine, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it into the gun, set the gun up. And at some point he realized what I was doing. And she's talking to me, and I'm trying to carry on with the conversation while doing all this blind. I did actually get the magazine into the gun, which I was actually pretty proud of.
Halfway there.
But then I'm thinking, if this guy rushes, how am I going to chamber around and get a shot off I'm going to talk about some stress. But somehow he must have figured out what I was trying to do. He hadn't gotten up to where he could actually see, but he must have seen me moving. He walks to the back of the car, gives her a seat. She's like, well, you have a nice day. And they both walk off. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. That was 11 years ago. It was before all this craziness with crime and stuff in a small town. But it's a personal experience of mine that I'm like, and I mean, concealed carry was available, and I got my concealed carry with Dave like literally 2 months later, because that was enough to say, okay, I need to be able to actually have a loaded gun on me at all times, because, you know, I'm not a small person. I'm not a person that would generally be a target of people, but when people are desperate, they'll target anybody.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Good to know right there, man. And so I guess the last thing I'd talk about tonight to kind of wrap it up would be when you're trying to figure out stuff like this. And so finally you're situationally aware and you are paying attention and you see what's going on and you're trying to figure out what is happening. This could have been just two homeless people that, honest to God, just needed a dollar or needed to know where the Dollar General store was at. So when you're trying to figure that out, my biggest suggestion would be this: compare their behavior to what your normal behavior is. So maybe you're a weirdo, I get it, and your normal isn't everybody else's normal. But what would you do if you saw somebody else at an ATM machine getting money out? Would you walk up to that person in the middle of their bank transaction and ask them directions?
nope.
I probably wouldn't. I would feel real nervous just getting anywhere near their car, you know. And if I was with, you know, my girlfriend, with the, you know, or wife, with the both of us walk up to the car and talk to you, like, no, we wouldn't go anywhere near
Nope.
your vehicle. If we were legit, we would stand back, wait our turn. If we needed to get to the ATM, let you drive off. We wouldn't approach you during that very personal banking transaction with all your personal information going on. So that's the last tip: is compare other people's behavior to what your normal behavior is. And, you know, we hear things like, I had a gut feeling, right? That's those intangibles we were talking about before, the look in somebody's eyes. Well, what was the look? Describe. Well, it's not like they're cross-eyed or, you know, or whatever. It's just, I don't know. Your brain could just tell.
Red flags.
Big time. And so you've got this feeling, and we want you to let your brain soak all this information in. And so if you're in this situation, like, at this moment, I'm not quite sure what's going on, give your brain like one more second to process this info. I tell this story a lot in our classes. Real quick before we wrap up, I taught Little League Baseball with my three boys as they were growing up for about 15 years. And we used to, when they were about 8 or 10 years old, the kids that would come umpire these games were also young kids, like 12 or 13-year-old kids. They would let the younger, you know, 6th or 7th grade kids get their start in umpiring by coming to do the 8, 9-year-olds.
That's a pretty high-pressure situation for a 6th grader.
No kidding. Have you seen the parents at these baseball games? It's like bloodbath out there. What are you doing?
In major leagues.
It's like child abuse sending a 12-year-old to be an umpire at a Little League baseball game. And it's not going to get any better, because I'm going to tell you what we used to do to these kids. But these kids were very susceptible to making bad decisions, umpiring games, if they made their decision at the moment, the play. So, for example, if kids were running to first base on a hit and it was going to be a close play, the umpires, these kids really wanted to call safe or out at the moment the kid's foot hit the base. And it was like a 50-50 shot. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. And we tell them, you know what, if you just wait for 1 second, if you just watch and listen to the foot, the ball hitting the glove, all those things, and let your brain soak it in and maybe even replay it for 1 second, 95% of the time you're going to get the call right. And it's just because you're giving your brain that 1 extra second to process this information. Usually 1 second extra doesn't put you in life and death danger. It could. I'm not saying that you can't make an immediate decision to protect your life, but in those situations where it's a gray area and you're trying to figure things out, is this normal? Should I drive off from the ATM? Like, what do I do next? Give yourself that 1 second to let it sink in, and you'll probably be making the right decision more often than not. So trust your gut. We have a lot of victims that tell us in the middle of a rape or sexual assault, a violent attack, that as it was beginning, they had this like a feeling of dread, like A dread feeling is like the feeling of I'm about to die. Like this is so horrible. And they can't really explain it. They just, all this information was pouring into their brain through their senses, their eyes and ears. And their brain just told them, this is, you're about to get killed. And they couldn't really put their finger on why. So your brain is very good based on all of your life experiences of figuring out what's normal or not. Mm-hmm. So trust your gut instinct on that. Compare your normal to other people's normal, and you'll be setting yourself up for success pretty well.
Yep. So that's 10 really good things to think about. 3, maybe not in the situational awareness, but just general, just preparedness for the situation. And then the other 7, it's really important that we go, and we could talk for hours about this and different scenarios and how you should prepare for this stuff. And really, everybody has a different scenario that they have to prepare for, because everybody has a different life. Everybody has a different routine. But it's important that we make our minds go to these places, because when the situation hits you, your body's never going to go where your mind has not gone before. So think these things through. Take a few moments, and it doesn't take long to formulate a plan of like, hey, if this happens, this is how I'm going to react. It may not play out exactly like that, but if you have a plan, your chances of survival and your chances of avoiding a bad situation go up exponentially.
Yeah, and this channel is all about sharing valuable information too. So let us know if you have any situational awareness tips, things that you can practice to make yourself more aware of your environment and your surroundings. We want to hear them. We want to share them with everybody else that's watching. So please don't be afraid to get on there, type out some ideas. Whether you think what we said tonight, everything was stupid, let it rip. Let us know. Add your information. Add all the genius info you got on this stuff. We would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, so throw that stuff down in the comments. We do read the comments. We love to hear the feedback from you guys, and we love being a part of this channel and just the community that it represents. That's all we've got for tonight, and so we're going to move on. I just wanted to throw something. Let me move my microphone here real quick. I didn't actually set this up ahead of time, but guys, we got some great coffee. I'd like to suggest that you guys try this, and you're going to love it. If you're a coffee drinker, we have two different roasts of this coffee. One's a dark roast called Banger. It's a nod of the hat to Dave. It's a flashbang if you can't see it on the camera there.
It's probably the best one. But
yeah,
John's got another one here.
And then we got the Afterburner Espresso. That is a nod to me in my Air Force days. F-15, what a beautiful aircraft. Get it on our website, righteoussavages.com. We'd love to see you guys try it out and give us some feedback on what you think of it. We also have shirts. Me and Dave are wearing our newest shirt tonight. I've got the black with red letters, and he's got the military green with the black letters. Comfort is your enemy, and I think that really what this channel represents is understanding that we need to get out of our comfort zone and get out into the real world and understand what we need to survive. And if you're caught in the trap of comfort, you're never going to go there. And so get out of that comfort zone. Comfort is your enemy, and we need to get out there and explore and make ourselves better every day. So don't forget to hit us up on our YouTube channel, Righteous Savages, and we'll have some great content on there coming out, and we will see you guys next time. Until next time, take Jesus with you everywhere you go and act like you believe. Have a good one.
Thanks.